Have you ever wondered why climate change feels like a numbers problem, but also somehow feels like a meaning problem? Have you ever noticed that people can agree on facts and still refuse to change because something deeper than logic is being protected? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are stepping into a story where religion and climate change meet in the same room, not as a fight, not as propaganda, and not as a performance, but as a serious attempt to answer one question. If human beings are driving a crisis through habits and values, can spiritual traditions help reshape those habits and values in time to reduce suffering? I want you to carry two main ideas through this whole journey. First, climate change is not only a technical challenge, it is also an ethical and spiritual challenge, because the crisis exposes what we worship in daily life: comfort, consumption, status, and short-term gain. Second, religion can either deepen the crisis or help heal it, depending on whether it trains compassion and responsibility or fuels denial and division. Because the mind can use religion as medicine or as an excuse. Let us begin with the feeling that makes this topic urgent. Many people are tired, not only physically tired, but morally tired. They hear warnings, they see disasters, they watch debates, then they watch delays. They feel a strange mix of grief and numbness. Some people feel guilt and get defensive. Some people feel fear and get angry. Some people feel overwhelmed and check out. In that emotional landscape, a panel about religion responding to climate change might sound either inspiring or suspicious. Inspiring because religion speaks to conscience. Suspicious because religion can also be used to control, divide, or deny. So the story begins with a simple truth. The climate crisis is happening in the atmosphere, but it is also happening in the human heart, because the decisions that shape the atmosphere come from what people value, what they fear, what they crave, and what they are willing to sacrifice for. That is why religious traditions matter here. Religious traditions are basically value-shaping machines. They shape how people think about responsibility, moderation, compassion, future generations, and the meaning of suffering. They can also shape how people deny reality and cling to power. So religion is not neutral, it is a force. The question is whether it becomes a force for awakening or a force for sleep. Now imagine the scene. A large room, people from different traditions, scholars, teachers, practitioners, maybe students, maybe activists. Some come with hope, some come with skepticism, some come with discomfort. And someone opens the conversation with a line that lands quietly but strongly. We do not only need new energy systems, we need new inner systems. That line is the doorway, because it suggests that even if we invent better technology, we can still destroy the planet if the mind remains addicted to endless more. A society can run on clean energy and still exhaust ecosystems if the cultural engine is still craving without restraint. So the deeper work is to transform craving, not only fuel. This is where spiritual language becomes surprisingly practical. Spiritual practice at its best does three things. It trains restraint without hatred. It trains compassion without burnout. It trains humility so the ego stops acting like it owns the world. Now let us tell this as a story through a person watching from home. There is a person named Jordan. Jordan is not deeply religious, but Jordan is not anti-religious either. Jordan is simply busy. Jordan lives in a modern rhythm. Work or school, screens, deadlines, stress. Jordan cares about climate in theory, but when the day is exhausting, Jordan chooses convenience. because convenience feels like survival. One evening, Jordan watches a long discussion about religion and climate change. Jordan expects vague moral talk, but something different happens. Speakers from different traditions keep returning to the same core points, even with different vocabulary. The earth is not an object, it is a relationship. Suffering is not separate from ethics, it is shaped by ethics. The future is not a concept, it is a person who will live. Consumption is not only economic, it is spiritual. Jordan hears these lines and feels something wake up. Not guilt, but recognition. Recognition that many daily choices are not only personal choices, they are moral choices. Because everything has consequences. That is karma in plain language. Cause and effect. If I choose constant convenience, I am planting causes that demand constant extraction somewhere else. If I choose restraint and care, I am planting causes that reduce harm. So Jordan begins to see that climate change is not only a global story, it is also a daily story. Now the conversation in the room moves into a difficult question. Why is it so hard for people to change when the danger is so obvious? A speaker answers in a way that feels spiritually honest. Because change threatens identity. People do not only fear losing comfort, they fear losing who they think they are. They fear losing status. They fear losing the story of progress that says more is always better. This is where spiritual traditions can help, because many traditions already train people to release attachment, to accept limits, and to find meaning beyond consumption. But there is a catch. Traditions can also be used to reinforce attachment. Some people use religion to justify domination. Some people use religion to deny science. Some people use religion to promise that everything will be fixed by a higher power so humans do not need to take responsibility. So the panel becomes a mirror. Religion is powerful, but power can serve wisdom or serve ego. Now let us enter the deeper heart of the story. A wise religious response to climate change is not only a slogan, it is a path with specific qualities. It begins with humility. Humility means admitting we do not own the earth. Humility means admitting our lifestyle has costs we did not want to see. Humility means admitting we are interdependent with beings we ignore. Humility is not self-hate. Humility is accuracy. Then it moves into compassion. Compassion means we care about suffering we do not directly experience. Compassion means we care about those who suffer first and recover last. Compassion means we care about future generations, not only current voters. Compassion also means we care about the animals, forests, oceans, and all living systems that support life. Then it becomes discipline. Discipline means we do not wait for perfect motivation. Discipline means we practice restraint as a spiritual act. Discipline means we build habits that reduce harm, not only when it is trendy, but when it is inconvenient. Then it becomes community, because the climate crisis is too heavy for isolated individuals. Community is where hope becomes sustainable. Community is where people support each other in new habits. Community is where grief is held without turning into despair. Community is where action becomes normal. So religion can help by building communities of practice, not just belief communities, practice communities. Now let us tell a longer story that shows how this could look on the ground. A local congregation. It could be a church, a temple, a mosque, a meditation center, any place where people gather around values, decides to respond to climate change in a way that is not just talk. They begin with a confession that is not about shame but about truth. We have benefited from a system that harms the earth. This confession is important because it breaks denial. Then they begin with education that is not propaganda but careful learning. They invite experts to explain what is happening. They ask questions. They hold uncertainty honestly without turning uncertainty into an excuse for doing nothing. Then they look inward. They ask, what in our tradition can help people change? They find teachings on moderation, gratitude, stewardship, compassion, interdependence, and responsibility. They translate those teachings into daily practice. They create rituals that remind people of the living world, not as superstition, but as attention reigning. Attention is the beginning of care. They also make practical changes: energy use, waste reduction, food choices, transportation, support for vulnerable members during heat waves and storms, partnerships with local resilience projects. And here is the most important part. They do it without turning it into a purity contest, because purity contests create shame, and shame often leads to hiding, lying, or quitting. Instead, they keep returning to a compassionate message: do what you can, steadily, and keep growing. This is spiritual sustainability. Now Jordan watches a community like this and feels something shift. Jordan realizes the problem is not only that people do not know. The problem is that people do not feel supported to change. Changing habits is hard. It requires new identity. It requires new routines. It requires social reinforcement. Religion can provide that reinforcement when it is wise. It can make restraint feel meaningful rather than miserable. It can make simplicity feel dignified rather than deprived. It can make service feel joyful rather than exhausting. It can make climate action feel like a sacred duty rather than a political hobby. Now let us address the biggest fear many people have about religion and climate. They fear it will become moralizing. They fear it will become judgment. They fear it will become control. This fear is valid when religion loses wisdom. So a mature religious response must include a strong commitment to non-coercion. It must respect conscience. It must avoid shaming. It must invite rather than force. It must combine truth with kindness. This is where Buddhist-style wisdom is extremely relevant even in interfaith spaces. Buddhism emphasizes compassion and non-harming. It emphasizes intention. It emphasizes training the mind rather than policing others. So a Buddhist contribution to a religion and climate conversation often sounds like this. Do not start by attacking others. Start by training your own mind and reducing your own craving. Then speak with clarity, not hatred. Then act steadily, not dramatically. Then build community, so action is sustainable. This is the middle way applied to climate. Now let us connect all of this to karma again, because karma is the backbone of the entire conversation. Whether people use the word or not, karma means actions have consequences. Not only physical actions, but mental actions. If a community cultivates gratitude, it reduces craving. If it reduces craving, consumption drops. If consumption drops, pressure on ecosystems drops. If ecosystems stabilize, suffering reduces. That is karma at the community level. If a community cultivates hatred toward outsiders, division grows. If division grows, cooperation drops. If cooperation drops, resilience drops. Suffering increases. That is karma at the social level. So the spiritual contribution is to cultivate causes that lead to less suffering. This is simple in direction, even if it is hard in execution. Now we need to speak honestly about the risk. Religion can also do harm in climate conversations. It can deny science. It can turn disasters into moral punishment narratives that blame victims. It can distract people into waiting for divine rescue while refusing human responsibility. It can deepen tribalism. My group is right. Your group is evil. So the panel in the room likely emphasizes that religion must evolve, not by abandoning its essence, but by returning to its highest essence. The highest essence is compassion, humility, and responsibility. Now let us make this personal again, because the real question is what you do after watching. Jordan finishes the discussion and feels a strange calm, not because the climate crisis vanished, but because Jordan sees a path that is not only technological and not only political, a path of inner training and outer action. Jordan decides to begin with one practice. Before buying anything unnecessary, pause and ask, what feeling am I trying to buy? Before arguing online, pause and ask, will my words increase cooperation or only increase rage? Before throwing anything away, pause and ask, where does this go? What does it become? Before complaining about inconvenience, pause and ask, is this inconvenience a small form of spiritual discipline that protects life? These pauses are not small. They are karma changing. Then Jordan chooses one outward step connected to community. Jordan joins a local group, maybe a faith-based group, maybe not, but a group that practices steady care. Jordan discovers what many people discover. Community turns fear into courage. Community turns guilt into responsibility. Community turns grief into service. And service gives life meaning. Meaning is one of the deepest forms of hope. Now let us close with a reflection that ties everything together. The climate crisis is forcing humanity to grow up, to mature beyond endless grabbing, to accept limits without humiliation, to care about strangers and future beings, to cooperate across differences. These are spiritual tasks as much as technical tasks. So religion responding to climate change is not a sideshow. It can be a central part of the solution if it trains the mind and heart toward compassion, restraint, and responsibility. And it can be part of the problem if it trains the mind toward denial, superiority, and division. So the question becomes personal. What will your spirituality produce in you? More clarity or more confusion? More compassion or more judgment? More responsibility or more excuses? More steadiness or more rage? Because whatever it produces in you will ripple outward through your choices. That is karma. That is destiny. That is the path. Thank you for being here with me today. Share in the comments whether you think spiritual communities can help climate action and what kind of response feels most genuine to you. Inner practice, community service, education, or lifestyle change. And if you want more videos that connect wisdom, karma, compassion, practice, and the real world, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment to support this community. I will see you in the next one.